All right, so I'm here today with Graham Farrow, who was kind enough to let us use one of his short plays, Push the Sky Away, in our Pandemonium production. So welcome, and as I sort of noted pre-interview, really I want to have this just be a little bit of a conversation on kind of how you've been taking care of yourself as a creative person in the middle of this pandemic, kind of how it's influenced your work maybe, and also, what intrigued you or interested you enough to be willing to be part of this project that we're calling Pandemonium.
Right. Well, first of all, hi Ned. Great to speak to you, and great to be part of this project. And thank God that theatre is back. We'll take any of it we can in any way. The pandemic, my God. In a way, in a kind of ironic way, it kind of. I'm going to go backwards and forwards on this subject. It's kind of been a godsend in a strange way, and I'm going to explain that. The fact that we're, because we can't move about so much, because we're tied to our the computers, it's kind of made it kind of easier in a way to actually push yourself into writing. The converse to that is because of the situation, it's been difficult to concentrate, hasn't it? In the whole mindset's kind of affected. And as you know, as a creative, if you're not on it, if you don't feel it, it's very difficult, isn't it, to kind of to get anything down. And I think, and of course, I'm sure again your other playwrights will agree, when you don't write, you feel guilty about it. You know, that it's the whole, isn't it? You know, I should have done something today, and it's kind of it really, it's kind of a metaphor for the whole pandemic itself. It's kind of been scary, and this isolation feeling that you have, which should be good for a writer, really. But as I say, the converse of that we just saw, because it's such a, we're not, there's a situation where I was thinking to myself, are we going to have theatre again? When you're in the deepest, darkest depths of despair, and you can't, the fact that theatre is such a public thing, and, you cram 40, 50 to 500 people in a small area, and the actors feed off that.
Right.
That's the whole point. How could you, if you can't touch anybody, you can't be in the vicinity of something, then theatre won't work. And that was something as a dramatist, it was like a really terrifying thing. More so than cinema, where when you think you work on a film set, you could shoot and you could put everything together at the end of it. And you think theatre, in a sense, the essence of it is being together in that small enclosed space, and as you say, feed off the audience feed off the actors, and vice versa. And it's kind of, I think that was the thing for me. It was like really, it was almost like, I'll be honest with you, it was almost like, well, what's the point even? It got to that, but I was thinking, I can't see the future for theatre. I can't, there just didn't seem to be any point in it. And then I was sitting around one day, and I got an idea for a monologue, and a short play. And it's something, it's strange. It's something I used to think, and I'll be honest, I used to think short plays were a waste. I used to think it was a waste of an idea, because when you get a play, that's a godsend for you. There's your idea. There's your hook, and there your 1.5 hours comes through that. And I remember and writing this short play, and it was about a woman who she was in jail. I'm not sure if you read this, Ned. Actually,
I did, actually.
Oh, you know what I was going to say. You read it. The Cold That Blisters. I think I was searching for the title. I couldn't remember what it's called. And I had this.
I blame that on COVID.
Well, thank God for that. I'm not going to see now.
Because you wrote it and couldn't remember it. That's even worse. Right?
That's a bad sign, isn't it? My God. Don't tell anyone. You have to cut that bit out. That's terrible. And I remember I had this vision in my head of this woman sitting down, relating a story, like a violent, and we didn't need any, it was just, there was kind of no bells and whistles. It was just I'm going to sit down and I'm going to relive this moment through this woman. And I absolutely loved it, and it absolutely sailed off the page. It's like it's a confessional
Mm-hmm.
for obviously your viewers who haven't seen it. A woman who took revenge for the
Right.
death of her husband tells us how she avenged the story. And after I read it, I just thought it was the most. It worked so much because it was such a punchy piece, and it worked within the framework of the 10 minutes. And elongating it wouldn't it would have taken the power away.
Mm-hmm.
So after writing that, I was thinking, well, have a go at a couple more. And I found that after a week or two of playing around with it, I had six. I had three male and three female, and kind of all tied up in a nice bow. They were all kind of reflections on loss, revenge, identity type thing, and basically to kind of answer your question in a long way around. This is what I found huge inspiration through through kind of living this journey through these kind just these ordinary guys telling a story. It just felt as if it was the right moment for me to tell the story. So all these six monologues are all delivered by men and women who are scared of something. Something's happened to them, and they don't know how to move on to the next level, which is just exactly how I was feeling through this whole situation. It's incredible how it was like a gift in the
Right.
midst of all this hell. This thing was thrown at me, and it just it's lifted me up thinking about it because it was such a I didn't want it. I didn't see it coming. I didn't set out to, and it was almost like playing around with something, and it was almost like kind of channeled through me, and it was the most. It's it's probably I think it's probably some of the best work I've ever done, and it came through this area, this place of this fear
Right. Right.
and almost like terror of not knowing what. And it their voice is kind of reflected in kind of how I was feeling at the time. So I guess, and that's basically what I've kind of. I spent a lot of time doing nothing, but when these ideas came, and this is where it pushed the sky away. It's a shame it kind of came through that because that is like a virus. It touches on the whole issue of how isolated we are and how, as your viewers will see and have seen, and that came about at the same time. And from thinking about short pieces as being a waste of time, it suddenly became something powerful and strong and something that I loved doing and hope to do more of them. I certainly
Yeah.
don't think they're a waste. The power in that short time is something you probably never get from a full length.
And yet, if you put, like, for example, I mean, there's several things that have come up for me as you talked about this. Uh, one which is that I think what you reflected just now about writing these six monologues is something that came up in a previous conversation with some of the other playwrights, where I had mentioned that in my other life outside of theater, I'm a mental health professional, and my university work is as a professor of counseling. And
Wow.
I mean that was my professional shift from professional theater into that. I left theater literally for over almost 25 years
Wow.
for reasons, mixed reasons. Some of them I regret, some of them I don't, but nonetheless, it gave me another profession that I actually loved. So I can't complain about that. But
Sure.
but I've come to really understand from that part of my training that I'm a real believer. I've worked a lot with artists as clients, artists of all from all sorts, and I really do believe that artists often, without even thinking about it, not even consciously, work on their own stuff, whatever it is, through their art. I think people
Absolutely.
heal through their art,
Very
and
much.
that's to me that's a perfect example of the drive of your own experience dealing with the pandemic led to these amazing monologues.
Sure. It's almost, isn't it? It's good to hear you say that, because you kind of, when you say it to yourself, sometimes it sounds, I don't know, it just sounds just out there and kind of, are you being too self-centered
Too
or too
dramatic.
that? There you go. That yeah. Too. I was going to say too Hollywood. Probably that's not the the right way to think. It's to hear you say that back is because we do as people, this self-analysis all the time. Like I said during that brief conversation before that, how we, if you don't write, oh my, you
Right.
peel that up, you feel guilty for that. And I mean, I'm not one of these writers who force it. I think I've said that to you before. I can
Right.
go absolutely. I'll play with it in my head for a long time. But this was a long time. During this pandemic,
Yeah.
I can't regurgitated these short plays out, in a couple of weeks. But I went months and months and months, and that was tough as a
Right.
kind of as a writer who didn't write.
Right.
That was, and I kept saying that to myself, to almost torturing myself. You're a writer, you're not writing.
Well,
And
and
that's good.
I don't know whether this would make sense or ring true for you or not, but I would also imagine as a writer, um, that sense of guilt for not writing is almost worse because there's really not a lot of other distractions.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
Yeah,
like you can't go, okay, well, I'm just going to go on a trip, or oh, I'm going to go shopping, or I'm going to go do this with friends.
yeah,
You're
yeah,
sort of stuck at home and you're not writing. So
yeah.
it's like, oh, double whammy.
Yeah, the double back. Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's kind of, and that's the thing, because you can't escape from it. You can't nip out for a cup of coffee and read the paper,
Right.
whatever, and reflect and maybe come back and do something. You're constantly fighting, and it's fighting you back. I had so many of these. I made myself worse by, instead of just leaving it. Then, if it's not working, leave it.
Right.
Just it's going to come back. I'm not one of these guys who, thankfully, these writers who ever had a block. It's just something I just can't. If I'm not motivated, I'm not motivated.
Right.
But I've never been. Let me touch some wood here. I'm not one of these who've been blocked. In fact, there's too many stories floating, too many ideas. But that was kind of, and I'd never berated myself for not writing. But it was just gone 6, 7, 8 months without writing something.
Right.
That's for a writer, it's that was bad. And of course that played on my mind. And through that pain, again, without being, that sounds overly
Right.
dramatic, doesn't it?
But
But it's the only way I can kind of explain it a minute. This is where the voice of that woman, where it all started, the anger this woman had, the distrust of government, the distrust of people who make decisions, just all it formed
right.
just so beautifully this one day, and just came out like that. And I remember sending it to this good friend of mine. In fact, he's a West End producer. I've worked with him before. He produced Talk About the Passion about 20 years ago now, and he's worked at the National. He does a lot of West End, and he read it, and he just said it's the most. He said I cried. It was the most beautiful piece of writing. He said that the pain
Hmm.
in that was just astonishing, and it was difficult to read at some point. It's a very, very powerful piece, and I
Yes.
sent it out to people, to friends, actor friends and actors friends, and they were all like, "My God, this is just." It's almost, like too personally. It's just they could kind of. I guess that writers can't mask themselves. You kind of they could see me in there,
Ah,
and they can kind of they go with the journey that they feel. Again, that word pain. They kind of, and they like understood, and I felt really, really good about that. They kind of
right.
understood, and it all seemed to come together in this whirlwind of it's written, they've been sent out, and everybody loves it. And it was kind of, well, it was, it just the way it all just formed just so perfectly. And I do really, really genuinely, as you'll know, you'll be the same yourself, and there'll be writers who will have written things and look back at them or look at the next day and think it doesn't work. But those I genuinely love those because they come those pieces of work came from
Right.
a tough place, a hard place, a sad place, and I think through that torture almost came some of my best work.
Yeah, and I remind people all the time, and again, in my sort of mental health professional part of me, that this pandemic is, while it may not be overtly understood as trauma, it is a traumatic event, and it
Absolutely.
it affects all of us. Yeah, and I think people underestimate how much it has had an impact on our mental health and therefore our physical health too.
Yeah, yeah,
Even if we're not focusing on it all the time, it's still happening all around us. And
yeah,
the
exactly.
stress, it's almost like our level of stress is up compared to what it was before the pandemic,
Yeah.
but it's been up so long now, it just feels normal,
Yes, yes,
right?
it's not true, and that can't be good to kind
Right,
of feel like
right.
that.
But we've normalized it, so now it's hard
Yeah,
for us
yeah,
to see that it's stress. It's like, oh,
yeah,
this is just life. But no, it's not.
yeah. That's true, isn't
And
it?
it's
You,
going to be
yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see how we resolve that at some point,
yeah.
how we integrate it when
It's
this
got to
is
take
finally
time.
over.
Yeah, isn't
Absolutely.
it? It's almost like that, isn't it? That whole kind of physical thing of when you're walking. I find myself now just automatically when I'm walking the dog, shifting away
When
from
people,
people and what. And you think, well, I'm not touching people now, not hugging friends. I'm a hugger. You know what I mean? Love to male,
yep,
female, and
yep,
the whole you American guys. We got that from you, the high fives and the
yeah,
whatever, and kissing my female friends and all this. And you think all of a sudden we'll be allowed to do that then?
yeah,
And it's right, isn't it? That shift from kind of you can't do
yeah,
anything like that,
yeah.
and all of a sudden you can do anything. I think you're right. That's going to the normality again. That word that we keep using and when can we and how
Right.
easy how difficult will it be to get back to that.
I think it's going to be a weird transition. I think even though we know it's going to be okay at some point, there's still going to be that part of us that kind of go take a pause for a moment before we go do it. It's like, I mean, again, I'll go back to our dogs. Thank God, right? Because that's where I'm getting contact. You
Honestly,
know,
it's just and because they're not going through that because they don't understand it. They're probably
like,
thinking, why is everybody at home all the time? They're
right.
probably thinking
Well, I'd lost one of my two dogs right at the beginning of the pandemic, or like
oh jeez.
early April, and I had
Oh
two
no.
that were from the same litter, and so I
Oh
still have one
really.
of them. She's 12 now, but again, after a few months, I wound up adopting a new dog, um, like 5 million other people, obviously, because it was like the third or fourth time I tried because they
Yeah,
were all getting snapped up so
it's
fast,
right, you can't find a dog now.
which was wonderful. I mean, I'm very
Yeah.
thankful, but my dog literally came up from Texas, um, and
Wow.
I got him at 6 months old, and he's never known anything other than I'm here all the time.
Yeah, yeah,
And whereas my other dog is like, she had me when I would be going off to go to work. I'd be gone for 8 or 9 hours during the day,
sure, sure.
which is why I've always had two dogs, right?
Right, right.
So it's going to be interesting when he suddenly has to realize that I'm not always going to be here all the time,
You can imagine they must be so confused, mustn't they? All of a sudden you're here all the time and I'm
right?
getting extra treats and you're being nice to me all the time and giving me extra hugs and all this. And but yeah, I would say thank God for dogs any day, any time of the year and any century. And but
Absolutely,
even more so now,
yeah,
absolute more of a godsend. It
yeah,
just seems like we said earlier off camera earlier that it seems like everybody's got it. I've never people who didn't even like dogs seem
right,
to have them and they're out walking and enjoying it, enjoying walking in the country and just for that freedom that it gives you,
right.
what in the joy. Again in little things, isn't it? Sometimes we find we look for joy and happiness in the most difficult things, hardest places to find, and
Right.
there that's right in front of us.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've been very lucky. I have a good friend here in town who has basically been part of my bubble. And we walk pretty much every day. She doesn't have dogs, but she loves them. So,
Joy, right?
so we walk every day. That's our thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Pretty much every day. And I've gotten to meet new people in the neighborhood, up the neighborhood behind me that I would never have met if it wasn't for walking the dog all the
well,
time.
exactly, exactly.
And these are people that probably I'll still continue to talk to and get together with every once in a while. It's kind of that's been a good part of this.
Yeah,
is
Yeah.
being home, because I spent so much time commuting previously. I didn't, I have friends here on the island, and I certainly have friends in my neighborhood who I hang out with and have dinner with and things like that. But having been here now so much, I feel like I've getting to know a lot of new people. And it's kind of nice. That part,
That's
I
a
think,
good thing that's come out of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a positive. Well, let me shift you back here again. Can you say anything about what was intriguing about doing Pandemonium with us?
I just it's I think for one, obviously the very first great thing about it was just to get something, to find somebody who was actually doing something, because I've had lots of chats with various producers, and they wanted to do something, but it's never quite materialized. So the fact that we've been talking for a while, and I got the sense that you were putting a project together, and when I heard what the project was about, and the whole and the umbrella of the whole production would be the short pieces, which almost interconnected, which after seeing them, you can see there is a connection between them all. It worked on both levels. It was great to get something out, to be part of something, and to have it on to be about the subject, and to be a subject that's obviously close to everybody's heart in a minute, which we're all going through. But I watched your interview with some of your female playwrights, earliest
Right.
part of and it was really interesting to hear, what they were saying again, the process that they went through, and how this is kind of brought us together.
Mm-hmm.
I felt really it's a really powerful thing. I can remember really, really, really looking forward to this. From the first time you said it was a goer, to kind of almost crossing the days off to see what would be like, and to get my friends involved, and they're excited because they can see theatre and whatever. It's just been such a kind of emotional experience as well, because again you're connecting
Mm-hmm.
with people, and I think even though virtual theatre isn't perfect, it's again to get this together like this, and to be able to talk like this, and I've met people through the kind of interaction that we've had through watching the production itself, the whole 2.5 3 hours of it.
Right.
I tell you, I'm going to miss it when it goes. It's kind of this is you've done something to me. You've kind of you've stirred me up,
Oh, good.
and that's without mentioning how good the production was, and kind of how on the money it was, and it's kind of the performances, because when I'm no actor, no director either. So when you kind of try and imagine, obviously, as you're writing. And I remember when I saw, in fact, when the two actors came on the screen, it was like, my God, that's even how I imagined them to
Wow.
look. It really, honestly, not no BS there. It was kind of, it's almost like you
Read your mind?
ahead and got them out. It's and it was such a good. It really, and again, I found it kind of like teary, not just the watching it. It was kind of because it took me back to writing it during this whole horrible time, and the
Mm-hmm.
kind of obviously because that story, without giving it away, is it's like this virus times 100, isn't it? It's kind of the
Right.
bleakest possible story. It's thank God we're again touching wood. We're nowhere near that. But I felt as I was watching it, because of this whole, I think more than anything, if you'd have, I don't know, if you'd have produced Talk About the Passion or whatever, or Rattlesnake, something like that, it wouldn't have hit us. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
It wouldn't
Yeah.
hit as much. I think it's because it was about this, because you've allowed us to see what we did through this. How our minds were. I think it was incredibly extra powerful in a way, and I think without you probably even realizing that, you've really touched something. That's really how I feel about it. It's almost like I've said, I think earlier in the conversation, it was almost like a gift to see it. You know, you're seeing it's been reflected back to you. That's how it felt for me.
It's, I mean, it's interesting you say that. I mean, of course, going into this production, having been doing live theater, had no idea how it was going to turn out,
Yeah,
if
gosh,
it
yeah.
would turn out, if we had the capacity to do it. I was assuming we would probably have, I don't know, for some reason I thought it was going to be actually more problematic than it turned out to be.
Oh,
I mean,
really?
I feel pretty lucky that overall the whole process went fairly smoothly. I didn't have too many bumps.
Right.
But going into it, I thought it was just a conversation I was having with a playwright friend in New York about
Oh, really?
yeah, about
Right.
what to do, and and what fits in with our mission at this theater. And it was just like suddenly like, well, of course, I mean, why not write something, why not do something related to the pandemic,
Right. Really?
because
That's right.
that's what
Right.
we're living, and it both fits our mission. But I hadn't thought about it at the time as something that would also be in its own way kind of therapeutic.
Right.
So,
Right.
as you say that, it goes, oh, well, yeah, I guess that makes sense. And as I've heard from some of the other playwrights, by the way, you are the only male playwright out of these
I
nine
saw
playwrights.
that. That is that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
That's.
was not intentional. It just is kind of
I
what it
feel honored to
was.
be. Yeah. That's wonderful. Yeah.
I only had a handful of guys that submitted. Most of them were
Right.
women. Yeah,
Really. I wonder if there's anything in that. That's.
I don't know. I don't know.
Mm.
Yeah, and
What?
only one is relatively local. She's in Seattle, but she's from back east. And the rest of them are all, you're in England, Kezia's in Israel,
Really?
and then I've got a couple of California, and the rest are New York or East Coast.
How
So
interesting.
yeah, but
Wow.
again, I feel like it's like I've got to meet these people, and I feel like we've made a connection, and I'm kind of hoping that they'll think of us for future opportunities. Um,
Well, you would imagine so, wouldn't you? It's as I say. I mean, I feel like really, it's really touched something in me. Not just that kind of. I don't know, because something's on and you're seeing some of your work and you appreciate it, but just as I say that, it just felt like for the briefest time, a community
mhm.
again. That we were, as I said and want to reiterate, listening to you playwrights talking earlier was like really really interesting, because you're thinking, isn't it? Am I thinking this? Am I going through this a different way to, my anxieties, did they sail through it? Did they right? It's kind of all. We all. But I have some writer friends who are written every day, and lives. They've never had it so good, and they actually kind of like being locked down and all this. And I'm thinking, well, Jesus, maybe I'm the odd one out. You know what I mean? So
I
so
don't think
it's
so.
it's to be honest, I think that's a cover, isn't it? To say it's like all these. I have friends who say. Oh, I've learned a dozen languages and I've learned to bake this pie and that. And you think, really, just, are you masking something here? Or why not just be honest? We're all in the same boat. We're all suffering. We all bleed the same. I don't think anybody needs to, and I don't think anybody needs to be patronized to be told that, because some people do, don't they, react in different ways. And
Right.
I think to be told, go and learn a language, go out and bake a cake or whatever. It's not a great thing to. This is why I would never tell anybody it was the right thing to write or not to write. Or I think you've just got to let people. You never know what's going on in people's minds. I
Right.
mean, I'm
Everybody.
telling you that. You know what I mean. You
Yeah.
you know that more than anybody else. It's
Well, everybody has to find what what's going to work for them, and
absolutely.
there's not a one size fits all. And I mean, mostly I worry about the folks that I work with who completely fell apart. Then it's like trying to help them through that, to
Exactly.
find if there is something that will perk them up, if there is something that will help them focus. But again, everyone has to go through this.
That's a tough thing when you think people who were brittle and who were having trouble before this.
Right.
You know, that's what, you know, I sit around sometimes and think, you know, I moan about this and moan about that, but my God, you know, I've got things going and I can be positive in things. And, you know, I do have a future. It's lovely to know that at the minute, productions are being announced all the time, you know, and I've been invited to India again, and we were talking about that before. And a couple of, I had a short film made in Paris recently. One of my short stories was turned into a film. It's in post production now, and it looks fantastic. I saw some of the
Great.
stills, and it looks. And again, these little things, you know, when I saw the, because it was awful. I was supposed to go out and be part of the, just to observe the production.
Right.
Obviously, I couldn't do it, and it was really, really sad. And I remember when the director sent me the stills, and I was almost, it was just so, I almost like burst, because you know, these things are happening again, and people are making fantastic art. You know, they've struggled all the way through it. And I'm not just talking about the writers, the actors, the cinematographers, you know, the dubbing people, the dollies, the grips, everybody who struggled through it, to see it just dripping back.
Right.
It's just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful thing, and you can see that that future ahead. But if you're struggling mentally, and it's very difficult to tell somebody, like you say, how to act, and that things will be good again, because it's still unknown, and it's you know, for a writer like me, it's not knowing what's going to happen and using an imagination is a fantastic thing, but as a person, it's absolutely horrific, isn't it?
We like to think we know what's going to happen next.
Exactly, it's comforting, isn't it? And even though you want a bit of mystery in your life, not you know, nobody would have dreamt or wanted or expected anything like this to happen. And you wonder sometimes, don't you, that whole thing about, is it a reset? You know, is somebody watching us and we've made too much of a balls up about it, so let's start again, and can we make it right next time? And you know, you do wonder. I think there's a play in there somewhere, isn't there?
Probably.
I'm on it.
Well, is there anything else that you particularly want to say at this point? Because I don't want to keep you forever. I've kept you for almost an hour.
God, isn't it? That's incredible how the time's flown. Just
I have to go over. Again, I have to go over to the theater now and sign our new lease.
You do?
Literally.
Oh, really? Oh, I thought, right. Oh, that's wonderful. So things are moving for you then. That's no. I just hope that we can. You know, again, this is the start of something. It's been wonderful to be part of it, to see it. I've looked in a few times now on the channel and seen some lovely comments from people in the corner about the quality of the writing and the quality of the performances, and again, that feels good.
Yeah.
The community, that people are watching and responding and reflecting on it and talking about it, and you know, would like to see this again, and you know, that's felt really good to be part of. You know, for that one moment, we haven't been isolated. We were, you know, together in this. That's been good. I mean, just a fantastic experience. This kind of better than I didn't know what to expect in many aspects of it, really, you know, in terms of
me neither.
Touche. I can imagine you. So for you then, it must have been, well, can I turn it around and ask you then, how did you find it? Well,
I mean, I'm happy to be on this end of it, on this side of it.
Right.
It was a very.
I was wondering if you were fancied taking on some of the roles. I was thinking that would you have liked to act in it?
I you know what, I think I said this in one of the interviews I did before. I felt more like a project manager than anything else.
Right.
And I wound up
all those plates and the spinning plates. Yeah.
And you know, because I really was kind of the point person for everything. So
I get that. Yeah.
But I still wound up directing most of them, which I didn't want to do originally. I wanted to get more directors involved, but part of that was just timing. It was a fast process, literally.
Yeah,
I mean,
God, yeah.
we made decisions about which plays to use towards the end of January, cast it, started virtual rehearsals, and filmed it all the last week of February.
It did seem to come quick. I
It's
remember. Yeah,
fast.
yeah.
And
That's
then,
very
we had
fast.
10 days of editing. And
Wow.
there's still little bits and pieces of that happening even as we go. I
Oh,
swear we
really?
make kind of minor little changes here and there. But no,
Right.
I'm very pleased with it. I'm pleased with how many people have already watched it. I mean, I was
Right.
not expecting this kind of a turnout.
Oh, fun. Well, that is great to know, isn't it? Because it's like we say this all the time. You could write great pieces, you could have the best actors, but if people aren't going to respond to it, what's the point?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
the fact that people have taken it on board and
yeah.
and really embraced it and really enjoyed it again by the comments I saw, it's
Yeah, you have a fan, and I'm pretty sure he lives in England because he was on again yesterday for our matinee and commenting.
all right.
And loved Push Away the Sky, and he wanted to come back and watch it again. But he's apparently he follows you, and I don't know whether it's somebody you know or not. His name is
Oh, oh,
Michael Watsky, something like
oh
that.
no.
But I'm
Oh,
I'm pretty sure he's a Brit just by his how he spells.
all right.
But he was
Oh,
just
I
like
might.
gushing about how he follows your work, and he's heard that you were doing a short film in Paris, and
How do
so.
people find honestly? How do people find out these things? It always amazes me.
Well, you
This.
did put up that Facebook post, and so
Yeah,
it could have
yeah,
been off of that.
yeah. Probably will be because you
Yeah,
wonder that there's a Wikipedia page out there which I saw and it's like I mean I wouldn't know how to edit these things if you put it in front of me with a with a compass or whatever, and everything seems to be so accurate and you think how do they know things like that? People know where you were born and you have a dog and you lived in Thailand and you thought what the it's kind of I was gonna it's creepy but wonderful at the same time.
well,
It
you have those cameras in your lights and in your television, and they're recording you all the time, right?
oh my, is that what it is? You ever get that feeling somebody's watching you? Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's it's great, isn't it, that people appreciate your work? I mean, we
Yeah,
all typical writers who are scared to death that anybody else, will respond to the work and what
right,
have you.
right.
It's nice to know.
Yeah,
It
no, I'm feeling really pleased with this, and I'm glad. I mean, that's why we also did some of these live streams, so we had a sense of community where people
sure.
were able to watch it at the same time, even though we're not in
Yeah,
the
it's
same place.
fantastic. Fantastic
Um,
idea.
because I know a lot of the other theaters that I've noticed doing live stream stuff, they'll do one of those and then they just leave it up for a certain period of time and people can watch it. But I like the idea of having a sense of connection.
Yeah,
And even if
yeah.
not everybody's chatting, it's still you have a sense that there's a connection happening and people are paying attention.
And there was that because you get somebody saying, "Hi, it's me from." Oh, I remember you. And
Yeah,
it was kind of going up and down like that. And I had a quick look at one of the. I can't remember what day it was, and it's right. It was like I'm watching in Indiana, and this is great. I'm watching, and it really felt like it was that everybody felt part of that
right.
they felt part of it,
Yeah,
almost like you were in a theater, actually sitting in a theater watching something, which is
right,
what clearly they were craving and what we all
right.
crave, and the
And we
fact that you
will
do it.
and we'll get back there. I mean, this is clearly no replacement for live theater.
Mm,
But it's nice to know that there was something that we could do and not try to make it live theater, not try to
sure.
make it like, let's just go in and film a play on stage.
Oh God,
I mean,
yeah,
we did a little
yeah.
bit of that with one piece, but because it fit for that one piece, the Waiting for Godzilla piece.
Yes, yes, I remember that.
But it wasn't trying to do that. It was
Yeah,
trying to come up with, I guess, what do you think of as sort of a new media, right?
yeah,
And I actually am thinking that there's a way that this could be something that we do every once in a while, not as a replacement for the theater, but as something in addition to the live theater. This is a way that we can reach beyond local audience. And
it's a fantastic idea. The fact that, you know, I can sit and watch it, you know, and I can talk to you afterwards. My friend in India who's looking to watch it, and as you said, the guy from Israel and whatever, you know, we wouldn't have opportunity like that. So in that way, it's kind of, it's never going to be better than sitting in a theatre, but you know, we can see some wonderful stuff from different, you know, this really, when you think you can see someone from different countries. I don't know whether I told you, but a couple of years ago, a company in Istanbul produced Talk About the Passion.
Right.
We were so lucky that two of the best actors in the country to do it. And it was just a fun. I went, actually, was invited. It was the most beautiful thing. I was so honored and privileged to be invited officially over to be part of the production. I went. Obviously, it was in Turkish. Couldn't understand what was going on, but because I obviously knew the play, I followed the actions and whatever, and it was wonderful. And they said recently, they taped it. They taped the show. So could they do it again as part of a virtual season? So they're going to do that, and it's a fantastic, it's a brilliant production. Probably the best I've seen. I've seen a lot of productions of that play. This is probably the best I've seen. Just phenomenal on every level. So I think it's great that they can, and that's the thing, they can put that out there, and people from far and wide can see that. Whereas before, obviously, they couldn't see it. So in those terms, it's a fantastic addition to it. It's not going to take anything away from it. It's not detraction. It's an addition to.
Right.
No, it's
well, and what's nice is that you're willing to allow them to do that. I mean, not everybody is willing to let their work be done. I mean, obviously, hopefully, you're going to make something out of that. But
yeah.
But
I trust them, as I said, because it was such a good production, and they were halfway through the third season when the pandemic hit. So they're actually, and it was a new cast, and they were doing it again. So it's kind of it's one of these fantastic things where, because two very famous and very good actors are involved. And Istanbul is a huge theatre town.
Yeah.
People keep 500 seats and just every night full, and they can keep on doing that. But obviously, when the pandemic hit, they had to. But that was an opportunity to, as part of a virtual season, to put out these popular pieces again. So and for me to see it again, and say for people who couldn't be there to see it. So that's a fantastic addition to the whole theatre world, isn't it? So,
yeah, absolutely.
So I hope you'll watch it.
I will. I'll have to send me the information on this. If you have a link to the theater or the name of their theater, I'll look it up. I know I was following it on Facebook when you were writing about it. Back when it was happening. I remember that.
Yeah. It should be soon. They said March. I mean, so I guess it'll be. I haven't got the exact, but we've signed the contracts again, so I guess it'll be pretty soon. So I'm really looking forward. I can't emphasize how good it was, and the physicality that they brought to it, and different things that different cultures have, how they kind of changed a couple of things, but enhanced it and made it better, and brought in and one, obviously, you know the play. You remember the play.
Yeah.
They brought in when the guy Caraway was going through his emotional discussion with his dad in his head. They brought an imaginary father in, and he spoke to his father, and it was just fantastic. It's something I'd never thought of.
Yeah.
And it was just, the lights went on him, and he had this, and then this booming voice came down, and he'd have a conversation with his father. It was phenomenal. It was absolutely brilliant. I walked away thinking, why the hell didn't I think of that?
But isn't that the wonderful thing about plays, particularly? I mean, what I really admire about many playwrights, not all, is when they're really willing to take their baby and put it into the world and let it go, and allow directors and actors to create it in the way that they create it, and it keeps it as a living document. So it's a living thing, because there's always going to be something new and different.
It renews, exactly. It renews, it invigorates. In fact, you've just reminded me something there. I was watching your interview with, is it Susan Kelman?
Suzanne, yeah,
Suzanne Kelman.
yeah,
We're really interesting. In fact, to hear a fellow Brit as well, that was interesting. And she'd said something about that. It was about how she was more than willing to let her baby go out there, but she said there was something about she would work with somebody who was really adamant that nobody's going to change anything, and it just spoiled the production. The director was on edge, the actors were on edge, and
right,
I remember watching it and thinking that happens, but it's just absolutely it's crazy.
yeah,
You put something out with these wonderful directors and actors and expect them not to be able to bring something fresh and new and invigorating to it. It baffles me. But I guess these, because they're so insecure and so kind of self-centered, that nothing's going to better my work. My words should be written in cement type thing. It just absolutely, isn't it, that attitude?
yeah,
It baffles. I know it exists. I know it does. But I'm just, for one, so pleased. Even though I'm in a wonderful situation now where my plays are out there and they're produced, I'm still so grateful and so amazed that people want to take them on and produce them, and people pay good money to. Graham Farrow went 20, 30 years ago. I couldn't get arrested. Everybody hated the plays, and you think you get to this position where you're valued and respected. Why wouldn't you? It's right. Why would you be?
right,
Why wouldn't you want them to take something on and make it better than
right.
what it is, enhance it and play around with it? And it's not always going to work, but for God's sake, as you
Right,
said, it's an organism, isn't it? It's constantly
right.
evolving, and you breathe a new life into it, and that's the
And
magic of theatre.
it's not always going to work, but you don't know that till you try it, right?
Exactly,
Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
and that's true in so many elements of theater. I mean, certainly as an actor, because that's kind of how I started, right? I was trained as an actor to begin with. I mean, good actors can't handle it when they have a director who micromanages. When you have a director who's literally saying, move 2 inches to the left,
Oh, jeez.
you know, focus on enunciating this particular word. It's like
Oh, really?
I can't work that way,
It drives you mad.
because then there's nothing. What's in it for me as an actor if I can't do something with the character, if I can't bring that into being because of what I feel.
Exactly. That's
So
what
it's
it's all.
it's
Yeah.
the same thing.
It just seems madness, isn't it? The whole point is it's theatre more than anything. It's a collaboration. It always was, and it always should be. I
Right.
mean, it's just. But they are your precious people, and I guess that isn't it? And if you've worked on something for years, your baby, and you think it's perfect and whatever. The only thing you're hurting is yourself, because if
Right.
you get a reputation and there's somebody who's precious and you don't want anything, you're never going to be. Your work's never going to be picked.
Right.
Because when you think of
Right.
the options out there, the scripts that are out there, and the new plays that are written all the time,
Oh my
it's.
God. Yes.
I mean, you must cry. I can't even imagine what
I
must arrive in your
I,
inbox.
I get them regularly. Wouldn't want
Really,
to say exactly how often. Certainly not daily, but certainly weekly. And
weekly, really.
and it's just
New
like,
scripts from new writers and
yeah. I mean, new writers, old, writers who've been out there for quite a while. I mean, everybody who's involved in this production, all of you as playwrights, you all prolific. I mean, you all have been well produced. These are not brand new beginner playwrights.
right, yeah, yeah.
And so I'm in awe in some ways that everyone said yes. But at the same time, I also feel like now I've got more friends, I've got more contacts that I can collaborate with down the road.
Well, exactly.
Yeah,
It's right the way this whole thing's come together for everyone. It's interesting you say that, because it's kind of you've almost like cemented what I was thinking and what the other guys were thinking, that we've all come away with it with something really like concrete and allowing us to kind of think, well, like, we can do this again, and this can be something that, because I guess when you started off, you'd be thinking, well, we'll see how this goes, and I'm sure you weren't thinking, right, this is the first one and we'll do another in a couple of years or whatever. And
I'm actually trying to figure out what I'm going to do in the next 2 months.
Oh, really?
Well,
What, in terms of maybe doing something like this again, you mean?
I'm trying. It won't be like exactly like this, but I'm trying this year, since last year was a total nothing happened last year, basically. Our entire season was shut down. So I am trying to kind of follow our usual schedule of a season. Not that we planned a season and announced it, but just,
I get you. I get you.
like I'm trying to do something in May, which would be the next time we normally would have a production. It's probably going to have to be virtual. So I'm just trying to decide what that means and get on it.
Right. Well, that's quite soon, isn't it? In May. Wow.
Yeah. Normally we do March, May, September, November, and then we do our new works project at the end of June, which is just a weekend of staging something brand new as a kind of a workshopping.
All right. Okay.
But
that's I bet you get it. And do you invite new players for that? Yeah.
And then of course I get them anyway, new and old plays. But
I guess you're going to get quite a few more after this as well, I would imagine.
I kind of hope so.
I think that's a guarantee.
Yeah, and I've already talked to a couple of the other playwrights who I've said, look, if you've got something else that you think is potentially viable for a virtual production, let me know. It doesn't have to be a short. It could be a thematic short, or it could just be the full length that we try to do.
You've got me thinking now.
So there you go. Think.
Yeah.
Quickly.
Yes. Quickly.
Yeah. Anyway, so yes, I'm very excited by this, and I'm excited by the possibilities, and I can't wait to get back in the theater. In fact, I've been over there a couple of times, 2 or 3 times, and of course, when we filmed, we had 2 days of filming up to this, and there's just something about walking into the space, and it's just sitting there empty for a year.
Oh, don't! You're killing me.
It's kind of
you're killing me.
But I'm still having to pay the rent, so let's do something.
So, we're getting there.
Yeah.
Like the pandemic, we're getting there. We can see sunshine again. That's the metaphor for the situation, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right, my friend. I'll let you go.
Thank you.
Brilliant. I'll keep watching, and let's work together again.
Absolutely, and you'll probably see some clips from this interview on the weekend during our pre-show. All righty. Have a good rest of your evening.
Take care, Ned. See you
Bye-bye.
soon, my friend. Bye-bye. Bye.